Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to another one of these Irish Stew videos where I talk about a whole bunch of bees I've currently got in my bonnet on a whole bunch of different headings, and you apparently seem to like them. And we break these down according to first the world and then the United States. There's often a lot of bleed through between those two. And then broader YouTube, and then BookTube, and then finally me. The me section of yesterday's Irish Stew struck a chord with a lot of you. Oh my, I was talking about my pretentious man study, my PMS. I was talking about my little book room, which I have steadily been transforming with the help of David Murphy, into really a study, a place that more and more, increasingly, I feel like just staying in there. Because it's so nice. We added a chair, there's a plant in there, there's one window that sheds more than enough light for any occasion, and there's a big heat-resistant drape on there so that it's cool in the summer and it retains heat in the winter, and also the drape with the plant right there allows for you to adjust for any level of light that you want in there, and every inch of wall is covered in books. It's a wonderful, welcoming space, and I talked about that, and oh my, my inbox has been flooded with emails from people saying either that they have such a space and also feel the call for it all the time, or that they dream of having such a space. Then do I have any advice? I've been getting pictures of little alcoves by the stairs or little alcoves at the foot of the attic or whatnot, with people saying, here are these pictures. Could you summon, as one of you put it, could you summon your inner architectural digest and give me some ideas on how I could transform this space? So anyway, we'll start with the world. The main story in the world that caught my eye is that the European Union is deciding, or is contemplating, fighting back against Russia's invasion of Ukraine financially by seizing Russian assets. And giving them, basically transferring them to Ukraine so that Ukraine can continue the fight for its own national sovereignty. A point that seems to be lost in this Russian-led so-called peace talks that are going on between Ukraine and Russia and Donald Trump, that are nothing other than just Donald Trump trying to bully Ukraine into conceding territory to a territorial conqueror, to a nation that invaded you with tanks. Because, as I mentioned, thanks to that national security strategy, the United States is now officially one of the bad guys. There are plenty of arguments to be made that in plenty of theaters all over the world, especially in ye olden days in the Kissinger era, we were already the bad guys. But now it's vowed. If you're coming to this country from a free land, from a previous ally, from a country that, relatively speaking, listens to its citizens, we hate you. We want to totally ransack your phone and your social media, and even now, lately floated, take DNA samples from you. We're just going to violate you in every way. We don't want you to come here. In other words, if you're from our former allies, we don't want you to come here. If you're from our enemies, or if you do bad things, then you're welcome. And this is an interesting step on the part of the EU if they actually do it. It would mean a lot. That you can tell from the bleats in response that Russia has made, that it would mean a lot if the EU could do this. So we shall see. I sometimes get a little disheartened by how little the U.S. press, the fascist-friendly U.S. press, seems to care about the Ukraine story. They're under orders not to care about it because their boss, the boss, wants to give the whole country to Russia. And they know that doesn't play well with the United States populace. They know that doesn't play well with the people who watch their programs. I am endlessly fascinated by watching the twists and turns in the Ukraine story, especially when the just unlimited spiritual, moral encouragement of the United States towards Russia has emboldened them to take paramilitary steps elsewhere against other EU nations. So anyway, we can move on to the U.S. And in the U.S., there are two stories that caught my attention. One needs no help from me because it involves Jeffrey Epstein. And anything that involves Jeffrey Epstein is the darling of the news. And a difficult thing for the aforementioned fascist-friendly mainstream media to deal with. Because, I don't know if you saw, but recently a whole bunch of new photos were released from apparently a tranche that's 50 times bigger. And the mainstream media, the fascist-friendly, the fascist-backed and paid mainstream media is being careful to both sides things. They're saying, well, look, there's Bill Clinton in a picture, and there's Bill Gates in a picture, and there's Donald Trump in a picture, and there's Bill Clinton in another picture, and there's Bill Gates in another picture. Look at the pictures yourself. When you look at those pictures, you will not be seeing, well, there's a little Bill Gates, there's a little Bill Clinton, there's a little Donald Trump, there's a little more Bill Gates. You will not be seeing that. Unfortunately, you're going to have to do that yourself, because looking at those pictures through the fascist-friendly mainstream media means you will be misled. The goal of the mainstream media is to mislead you or lie to you outright. The president made controversial remarks. No. No one, not in Trump cult or on the Trump cult payroll, would stand there in the audience, listen to whatever that was, and then summarize it as the president made controversial remarks. No one would do that. So if your reporters all do that, they've been ordered to do that. And the same thing is true with these Epstein photo releases. Look at the photos themselves. It's not just the number of head counts. Look at the way the photos look. You've got person X, person Y, person Z taking very stiff, beaming, smiling pictures, obviously as guests. Maybe implicated guests, but obviously that extra orbital remove. The Donald Trump pictures don't look anything like that. He is so obviously a gigantic, paying, participating part of the massive underage sex trading ring that Epstein was organizing for years. He is so obviously not just a customer. He is so obviously hip deep in the worst sex scandal since the Catholic Church. I don't think there's any misinterpreting the different tone of the pictures involved when Trump is in them. The thing that bothers me about the whole story is the way it's being drip-fed. I can't stand the feeling of being manipulated like that. Who has all these pictures? Why is that? Is whoever has all these pictures, why are they immune to public conscience if it's the Democratic Party? Or why are they immune to subpoena power if it's the Epstein estate? Why are we getting these things in dribs and drabs that certainly look like they are intended to goose the news cycles? Grotesque. These are people's lives. These are huge tragedies, gigantic crimes that we're talking about. We should see everything. If we're going to see it in dribs and drabs, we should see everything. But anyway, the other piece of U.S. news is that lovely word. Once upon a time, I would have said it was the loveliest word in the English language. 4, 5, 6 years ago, I would have said it was the loveliest word in the English language, the word impeachment. A number of representatives in the House of Representatives have put forward motions or said that they intend to put forward motions to impeach Kristi Noem, the dog killer, to impeach Pete Hegseth, the man killer, to impeach Robert Kennedy Jr., the health killer. 3 of I would estimate around 10 actually diagnosable psychopaths that are in Trump's cabinet. The cabinet's huge. If you've watched any of his North Korea praise sessions, you've seen how big it is. And they're all horrible, rotten, awful people. But 10 or 11 of them are actual psychopaths. You take the test, and right around when you're asking how your results turned out, interns are coming to involuntarily commit you because you're obviously a danger to yourself and especially the rest of the world. At least 11 people in that cabinet are actual diagnosable psychopaths. These 3 are actual diagnosable psychopaths. And there are these politicians putting forward feelers or stating intentions to impeach all 3 of them. And every time, it won't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. But every time I see another ripple along those lines, I think, well, how about impeaching Donald Trump? There's an idea. It won't go anywhere. It will fail. But how about doing that anyway? Because he is manifestly breaking the law literally every day. Why not impeach him? The order to kill those helpless fishermen floating in the ocean, contrary to every rule of law that's ever existed, came from Trump. It didn't come from Hegseth, and it didn't come from this admiral that they're hanging out to dry. It came from Trump. If any of you are old enough to remember the old New York Post days and all the exposés on Trump companies, know perfectly well that no decision of any kind, even stocking the vending machines, is made without him. So this business of how he is cognitively impaired and all of his underlings are calling for murder on the open ocean, no. The decision came from him. How about impeaching him? How about multiply impeaching him? It doesn't mean anything. Again, I want to stress, because Trump himself is beyond the law, according to the Trump court, and the Trump administration will simply ignore the machinery of impeachment. So Congress calls you to come and testify, ignore it. Ignore the summons. Congress calls you to come and testify, and you decide you're going to. Maybe you've got time on your schedule between shooting household pets. So you go and just lie. Verifiable lies. Instantly verifiable lies. I never said that. Representative holds up a phone. Here's you saying it. You're under oath. You just committed perjury. You should be going to jail for 5 years. But it doesn't mean anything. This regime is not accountable. And despite what you've heard about polling or surprising Democratic results in little elections for mayor or special elections, runoff elections and whatnot, this administration is never going to be accountable either. Obviously, since every single person involved in it knows that they will go to prison if they ever leave power. Once upon a time, that certainty was mainly reserved for Donald Trump personally. But now, especially in the last 8 months, every person associated with this regime knows that they will go to jail, both in the United States and at the state level and at The Hague, if they ever leave power. So it takes a special kind of adorable naivete to think that they will then risk leaving power. But when I saw all those impeachment things, and there might be more coming, that's all I thought. Since none of these have a chance of succeeding, since they're all gestures, why not commit the biggest and most important gesture of them all? Why not move forward articles of impeachment against Donald Trump? Impeach him 10 times, if you have to. He breaks the law every day. The White House, the East Wing of the White House, is not his property. He doesn't get to demolish it. That's vandalism. That's grand larceny. Anyway, to use just one example. Anyway, but that's the U.S. So it was Epstein pictures that show beyond a shadow of a doubt, to my mind, that the company's name was Epstein and Trump. If there was a company, and also all these impeachment efforts. But then we can move on. We can move on to YouTube, and there's one thing on YouTube. I mean, I could give you further updates on the whole Candace Owens saga. It's just hilarious, and it is continuing to grow. But I don't know how tired you are of that subject. I'm not getting tired of it, because as many, pretty obnoxious lefty YouTubers. They're not really lefty YouTubers. They're all white as a pancake and straight as a string. They're all frat brothers. They know where the grift is. They know there's a grift that doesn't cost them their soul. It doesn't mean they believe it. But anyway, all of them are pointing out the reason why I find this story so endlessly renewing, which is that everyone involved is horrible. So you don't feel like you're hurting anyone by rooting for one side or another. You want them each to burn each other's house down with equal enthusiasm. But I don't know how many updates on Candace Owens you want. If I'm saving you time and maybe mental wear and tear, if you like hearing my updates because then you don't have to sink into the quagmire yourself, just let me know, and I'll gladly update you every day on how that whole circus is going. But if we're not talking about that, there's another thing that's making the rounds on YouTube with reaction videos that, of course, is near and dear to my heart, which is the trailer that just dropped for the new Supergirl movie. Which I watched. I've watched that trailer a few times, and I have watched the rabidly enthusiastic reactions to it. I have watched the comic book fan, even-tempered critical reaction. This is good. This doesn't seem so good. And I've watched the neck-bearded quasi-fascists just go insane. just go insane. The neck-bearded quasi-fascists most of them are taking the tack that this is just not in continuity. This isn't in character at all. Like you're trying to tell me that ever in your life have you read a Supergirl comic book. Ever. That's what you're implying. That you are an old lore archivist of Supergirl, and this just doesn't jive with that. This is the wokies getting their hands all over my beloved character. Like you're trying to convince me that you have ever read a Supergirl comic book. Ridiculous. No, they're objecting because Supergirl is a girl. But I've also been thinking about the trailer myself, and I admit, parsing it in minute detail, the idea that that the relative success of the Superman movie has made it possible for other Kryptonian movies to happen, that thrills me no end. If Superman continues to make money, I believe that it will end up being very profitable at the back end of streaming and whatnot. And if Supergirl is too, one of the little selfish reasons why I would love that is because it might redound to the small screen. It might mean a cable Superman show, which I would love. The cable Superman shows, whether it's Lois and Clark or Superman and Lois Lane or Supergirl in the Arrowverse, I have generally loved them all. What I wouldn't give for, I mean, they take place in weird alternate realities. Superman and Lois Lane just created a Superman reality of its own, raised two teenage sons. Wonderfully done. Just wonderfully done. Just the showrunner saying, look, we don't want to get bogged down in questions of continuity. Superman is a mythic character. We're going to put him through some mythic stories. He's going to fight Doomsday. He's going to fight Lex Luthor. We're going to create our own reality for that so that it is separately siloed and nobody has to worry about it. Instead, you can concentrate on the show we're making for you, which was great. And what I wouldn't give if they made the same decision and gave us Superboy. Oh, but anyway, I've been studying the trailer. I saw you get a tiny fraction of a moment's glimpse of Jason Momoa as Lobo. You get a whole bunch of other characters that are fairly easy to diagnose who they are just from the second that they're on screen. The 1 second in the trailer that bothered me was Supergirl seeming to cry over the prone body of Krypto the Superdog. There are two scenes in the Superman movie with Krypto that are my favorite things about Superman on the big screen in 40 years. I would really hate it if the dramatic engine of the Supergirl movie is the death of Krypto. I would really hate it. It would be the ultimate irony if I waited all this time to get a really good Krypto on the big screen only to have him die for a plot device. So we will see. I naturally gravitated to that moment, but I thought that the trailer was terrific. I'm all for any kind of a renaissance of DC Comics on the big screen. If the Superman movie is any indication of how those are going to go, bring it on. Absolutely bring it on. Happy, cheerful, ultimately optimistic, filmed in light and sunlight with color. That's so much better than what's his name, Scott Snyder. But anyway, that was YouTube. And then we can move on to BookTube. And there are a few things on BookTube, or BookTube adjacent. Like, for instance, John at Falstaff Books is probably BookTube adjacent. I don't. He's a very bookish channel. Obviously, he's an indie author and a publisher, but I don't see him doing hauls or tags or anything like that. So he might be BookTube adjacent. And he did a really interesting video on indie book publishers and bookstore distribution. I wasn't sure at the beginning of his video. I'll leave a link to it. I'll leave a link to all these things down below. I wasn't sure at the beginning of his video if I should watch it, because he addresses his audience as kiddies. Says, gather around kiddies while I tell you a story. And I'm not a kiddie. There wasn't anything that he told me in his video that I didn't already know. I admit it's a tiny little thing. It's a personal choice. It's a little rhetorical fillip, but I don't like it. I don't like it when a YouTube person of any kind, BookTube or otherwise, assumes a parental or pedagogical tone towards their listeners. That I'm going to sit back in my leather armchair and tell you about pre-Socratic philosophy, and you're just going to listen, maybe take notes, but there's no parody here. This is not a discussion in any way. I'm the teacher. I can't stand that. I didn't like that attitude even when I was a teacher. You will never get that attitude on this channel. Never. So it bugged me. It bugged me. I mean, when I call all of you guys, or fam, I'm doing it to specifically lampoon streamers. I'm sorry, streamers. I'm doing it specifically to lampoon them. Can you imagine what your reaction would be if I started a video in such a pompous way by saying, all right, kiddies, I'm going to lay down the law now. Anyway, I got over it. Believe it or not, I do occasionally get over things because his video was really good. It was all about, the ultimate gist of it was that the dream here for indie and self-published authors, the dream for any author, is to walk into a bookstore and see your book on sale. See your book on the shelf, right? That has been stereotypical for 35 years. That's the dream. You walk into a bookstore, maybe with your friends or maybe with your grandmother, her last round of chemo, and she sees your book on the shelf, and suddenly she doesn't think you're the homosexual incel that she always criticized you for every time she had too much eggnog at Christmas. Suddenly things are different. That wonderful Hallmark Hosanna angel singing moment, I've always thought that moment was unbelievably overrated and usually doesn't happen. But that is the dream that dangles in front of the eyes of authors of any kind. Mainstream published authors, indie authors, self-published authors. That's the dream that dangles in front of their eyes, is seeing their book in a bookstore. And John at Falstaff Books makes a great, detailed case for why that's probably a losing proposition if you are an indie or self-published author. And I've made this point before on this channel myself many times, that you are sacrificing a lot for that mythical moment. You're not, as he puts it in his video, you're not going where the money is. You're going, in fact, where the money isn't, where you're going to be owing money. You're paying a lot for that mythical moment. And the return isn't worth it. If you are a small press or an indie or a self-published author, by far your more intelligent strategy is to build your audience and funnel things directly to it, rather than try to get distributed in a bookstore. He also makes a point that I wondered, it touched on an old sore spot of mine, so I'll try not to let it commandeer this video. But I wondered, he made a point in this video about retail bookstores that I wondered how many of you knew, or know if you have a retail bookstore in your town. I live in a small town called Boston. Really has nothing to do with American literary tradition, so it's understandable that we would have no retail bookstores. But the point that he made is that retail bookstores have their books for a very temporary little window, basically on consignment. The publisher sends you a box of books, you put them out for sale, but you know that you have exactly this long to have them, and then right before that window closes, you box them up, or in the case of paperbacks, tear off the covers so you've just got the barcode, send back the whole lot for a complete reimbursement. Mainstream bookstores have people on the staff doing returns every day. And when I worked in a bookstore for a long time, I railed against that all the time. I railed against that model when it started to appear, even before I worked in a bookstore. I railed against that model because if you know that you can return for full price everything you have in the store, then you don't care as much what you have in the store. And therefore, you don't need staff members who know what will work and what won't in a store. Once upon a time, a Brentano's in Chicago or Laureate's in Boston, you had people at the store who knew the audience. They knew your customers. So they would get catalogs. They would have salespeople come in and make pitches for every publisher. And they would decide. They would put their heads together and decide what's going to do well in this store. What can we expect to sell? Because if we don't sell it, well, then after a while, it's taking up valuable shelf space. So then we have to mark it down, and then mark it down some more, put it on a table closer and closer to the front of the store until we're basically giving it away. And we don't want to do that. Well, of course we don't want to do that, but there isn't any alternative because returns didn't exist. Now they do. And this has led not only to retail bookstores looking exactly the same, but also to the lack of those employees. The employees that know the books and know the customers. They aren't necessary anymore if you can return all of your stock. He touches on that, but for those of you who are aspiring indie authors, maybe dreaming of self-publishing or whatnot, you really want to watch this video, kiddies, because he knows what he's talking about. He's been on all sides of this equation, and it's laid out beautifully. So I'll leave a link to it down below. It will give you a lot of good information. I'm going to have to make a mental note to watch all of his backlist. If this video is any indication, I can put up with the condescending tone. I can put up with that. But anyway, what else do we have on BookTube? Mike at Riff Raff's Reading Renaissance made his raucous return, the raucous return of Riff Raff's Reading Renaissance. he took time off from his channel for real life. Not really sure what that is, but he took time off from his channel to deal with real life and then came back. I know the betting on certain areas of Reddit was pretty strongly against him ever coming back. Booktubers say this all the time. They say, oh yeah, I'm going to take a break, but I'll be back. And then what happens? Steve drives them away, and we never hear from them again. But Mike came back, and it was a terrific video. I'll leave a link to it down below. It did have one genuinely horrifying note. So I want to prepare you ahead of time, because he's a great channel. You should go and subscribe. But his video had one genuinely horrifying note. If you've ever watched his videos, you know they look the same. They're a little different now because all of a sudden word has spread throughout our little corner of BookTube that you should shill your audience right up front. Like the video, subscribe to the video, hit the bell for notifications. Number one, don't hit the bell for notifications, not only for Mike's videos, but for any videos or anything else on any piece of technology. Your technology should not be talking to you. Nothing will erode your attention span like cheesecloth faster than your technology talking to you. Silence your notifications on everything. Don't worry about an emergency. You're not important. Nobody's going to be calling you. Silence your notifications on everything. And also, if somebody's watching your video, if they stumble across it because of the algorithm and they really like it, do you think they're going to need any nudging or encouragement to subscribe? Isn't it sort of natural that they're going to subscribe? Anyway, just as long as you remember, okay, again, you're not going to get anything like that on this channel. Don't like this video. Don't share it with your friends. Don't post it on social media. Definitely don't hit any kind of a bell for a notification. If I say something, and especially don't subscribe. If I say something that you find interesting or contentious or whatnot, feel free to leave a comment, or if you've got your big boy pants on, feel free to email about it so that we're taking off YouTube completely. But anyway, the horrifying moment in his video, if you're familiar with Mike's videos, there's him with his friendly face and that incredible voice of his. Right there in the center of the screen, behind him over his right shoulder is a computer screen that usually has some sort of enhancement to his story. And then, beyond both of them, are the green hills of Africa. beyond him and the screen is this Mines of Moria, piles of books, piled all the way out of frame, going up who knows how high. And in this video, the horrifying moment is that Mike says that the side of the room on the other side of the camera is genuinely messy. As if what's behind him on camera, those of you who are the AAA neatness, you're not going to want to hear that. But it was wonderful to see him back. Here's hoping that he stays. Also, Bren Booth-Jones did a video, a very calming little bookshelf tour. And he talks a little about bookshelf tours. And it's wonderful because he's got a lot of really interesting books. I imagine that Mike does too, but who knows? Who knows for sure? They're in geological layers that haven't been touched in this era. But Bren's video made me think about the possibility of an epic video of my own. What if, let's say I come back to BookTube in 2026. What if I did a book tour of my own, a library tour of every single book in Hyde Cottage? And what if, while I was doing that in installments, because that would take a year to do, what if while I was doing that in installments, I was also counting the books? Not only a library tour, but an inventory and a census. Oh, can you imagine? I've done many, many library tours, and a lot of the books are the same, but I don't expect anybody to go spelunking through 9,000 videos. So the idea came to me. When I was watching Bren, I was thinking, what if you did that? And what if, to facilitate things, I scrupulously keep one part of Hyde Cottage separate in just a causality loop, where there's one part that is all the stuff that is actively changing, coming and going. The books that I get at the Brattle, I want to read them. I'm not sure I'm going to keep them. What if the new books that I get in galley and then in finished copy, what if I have a bookcase now that I basically use for that? What if I exempted that? So that is exempt, because I don't know that any of those are going to stay in the collection, and then count and list and talk about everything else. Oh my. It got me thinking, but I'll leave a link to Bren's video because it's really calming. And that is BookTube. So that leaves only the me section, and the me section, a little bit of a melancholy note, not much of a melancholy note. When you're as old as dirt, the notice of your death comes with its own comforts. I always omit that. I always forget that detail of it and just dread the death of some person that I admire. And then when the death comes, I remember, oh, wait, but they were really old and lived a very fulfilled life. The age actually comes as a kind of comfort. I was amazed when I felt that about the passing of Jane Goodall. And the me part of the video today is bookish related. Joanna Trollope died. And she seemed fairly happy as a person. She was successful as the kind of author that really doesn't exist anymore. Very much looking back to her famous ancestor as opposed to at the current market. And it worked for her. And I read a couple of her obituaries, and I thought, if I do come back to reading in 2026, I really ought to read all of Joanna Trollope. I have read most of her books as they were coming out, but they get filed away. What if I were to read, steadily, do a deep dive, a comprehensive reread of all of her stuff in order of publication? I think that'd be a lot of fun. And of course, in addition to being a lot of fun, it is the quintessential bookish tribute to anybody, right? So I might do that. But anyway, rest in peace, Joanna Trollope. So there you go. That is an Irish Stew video for today. No idea what this is, really. I never do, and yet you seem to like them. So I'll wrap this up, and I'll leave links to all the stuff that is link appropriate. And I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.